Welcome back to the Within Reach podcast. Here today, we've got a lot of topics to cover and joined by Krystal
Hello.
and Steph.
Hey guys.
Before we jump into all the juicy topics for today, I would love to hear a win of the week from each of you.
Oh, a weekly win. I like it. Spicy.
My weekly win would be doing an 18-kilometer run on Sunday, and it's been my longest one that I've done in a little while, and I did a really good pace, felt really good, and did it with a friend, so we chatted most of the way. So yeah, that'd be my win for the week. What about yours, Steph?
Well, actually, I do have a question. Do you normally, is 18 kilometers something, sorry, I'm trying to comprehend it because I've never done 18 kilometers. Is that easy for you to do?
It's still a challenge, but I guess with my marathon training last year, I've done a lot longer runs than that. So yeah, it's kind of funny. After doing the full marathon last year, 18K doesn't seem like that big to me.
Yeah.
But it is still challenging, yeah.
That's really
Definitely.
impressive. That's really impressive.
And when you put it into perspective, Steph has recently started running, and what's your longest run?
I ticked over 10Ks for the first time a few weeks back, and then I got injured. So, well, I don't know. Let's not call it an injury. I keep calling it a twinge because that feels better.
A fun twinge.
No, it's not very fun. No, my sciatic nerve in my right side's been playing up, so my glute is very tight at the moment, and I've got a lot of lower back pain. So I've been told to stop running. I've actually just been told I can start running again, but now that I've had a few weeks off, I'm needing to build that momentum, and I'm really nervous about getting back into it because I'm like, what if I've lost my fitness? And
Yeah.
she'll be right, but
Yeah.
But yeah, 18Ks, that's very impressive. I've not just done 18Ks, you know? Yeah. What's your weekly win? I'm still trying to think of mine.
Oh, still trying to think of yours.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a first, actually.
Well, it's because you put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I'm trying to beat Krystal at 18Ks.
Yeah.
Top that.
Weekly win is being here, being present, and actually doing this podcast, because I feel like there's been a lot of things inside my comfort zone this week, other than yesterday, which is no device, no electronics, nothing, which was a fun experiment, although again, coming back to something I've done before and it's still feeling a bit out of the comfort zone is my weekly win.
Yeah. Okay. I think my weekly win is being calm this week. Because in the last podcast episode, we were talking about how I felt like I'd had in my own way a rough couple of weeks, just mentally wasn't feeling myself, wasn't really I wasn't feeling my vision, and I wasn't inspired by my vision, and I just felt like things were very out of reach and really hard. And so this week I've been able to pick myself back up, and I'm just so proud of myself, I have to say, because a week ago, if you'd asked me if I wanted to quit, I would have said yes, which is really interesting to share, because I know a lot of people see me as somebody who's just always on the go. But last week was really, really hard for me. Last Wednesday, I genuinely was this is just too much. I don't know. I completely lost self-belief and was I don't think I can do this anymore. And from the outside looking in, it looks like there's so much success and everything's going really well and we're doing really well, and we are. But in my own experience, I sometimes lose sight of all of the positives, and I'm too busy focusing on the negatives. And that was a real challenge. So I think my weekly win is I'd never gave up. I don't think I have it in me to ever give up. I get close, but I never actually can pull the pin. I just don't have that. That's just not my mentality. Even if I get to that point where I'm I don't know if I can, and I have a bit of a breakdown, which happens sometimes. Yeah, I just dust myself off and keep going. And this week's been really, really fun, and I've reignited that spark, and yeah, I'm feeling like myself again. It's really nice.
Yeah, and completely relate to you, which I think we spoke about this in the last podcast episode. And I guess another reason why my 18K is a big win for me, because I did lose that spark for a little bit there, and I did just have, I think I had a week and a half off running, I had a full week off training, and yeah, had lost that spark a little bit too. So yeah, getting back into it has been really nice. I've actually had lots of wins this week, and as Bad said, being here today is really exciting too.
I like that we can be so transparent about these things, and so unapologetically as well, because I think so many times, so many of us think that these times only happen to us and not to everyone else. So it's like when you can actually look at it and go, oh, like this does happen to the best of us. It allows us to almost, I guess, reevaluate where we're at and know that actually this is normal and there's nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely okay. And I think it gives people the confidence to be able to like also have the courage to get up and keep going, because life can be really tough sometimes. And yeah, I'm really glad we started the podcast with this.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And a good piece to remember is that like we're all human and we're all here just experiencing life.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that have like always stuck with me is like growing up as a kid is like watching movies and really resonating to movies. You'll find that the most connection or the most drawn to movies is like someone going through triumph, like a really hard stage of their life, and being able to overcome that and achieve greatness out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that saying, nothing worth having comes easy, right? And yeah. You're right. I'm just reflecting on all the movies. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like the best stories are the ones where there's been some struggle before a massive win.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And we get to go through everyday life and experience that. Although sometimes we get really stuck in that triumph of, wow, this is really hard. And
Feels like pushing shit uphill.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And though, remembering that you're going to be able to achieve something from this or learn something from it is the preciousness of it.
Yeah.
The quote that I love, like, where your focus goes, energy flows. So like if you are in that dump and focusing on being so low, it's going to be pretty hard to get out of it if that's all you're focusing on. So you need to focus your energy on getting out and triumphing over it.
Yeah. I love this.
This is such a great start to an
I know,
episode.
isn't it? I hope you guys at home got something from that.
Yes. Yeah.
But today's topic.
Yes. Today's topic is all around, well,
To track or not to track?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think that's what
literally.
we should probably title it, to track or not to track.
yeah.
Krystal, would you actually like to kick this one off?
Yeah, I think tracking is a very useful tool. However, I can understand it people might not have a good relationship with it. But I think it comes down to is what your goal is. And if your goal is to build muscle, if it's fat loss, tracking is going to be a really useful tool, because without it, you are just guessing and you may not be seeing that progress that you want to be getting. So tracking allows you to understand what's in the foods that you're eating, making sure that you're hitting your energy requirements, getting your protein, getting your healthy fats and your carbs, and understanding also like the micronutrient level too. So not just eating takeaway all the time. So once we start to track, we also start to make better choices around our food. And for me personally, I found tracking actually helped my relationship with food, because I realized I wasn't eating enough, or I'd try and skip meals and I'd snack and wasn't getting what I needed. Whereas when I started tracking and educating myself, I'm like, oh, I can have a big breakfast and lunch and dinner and actually feel so much better for it. So I think tracking is an amazing tool. And then if someone doesn't have a great relationship with it, that's when we will look at other alternatives.
Yeah. And with that as well. So, because I have a few different opinions on tracking. And again, like at the end of the day, the right strategy is the one that works for you and the one that you can stick to. In saying that, the reason that tracking, and for those of you who are like, oh, what's tracking? Tracking is when you're able to track the amount of calories you're eating per day and also the macronutrients, so proteins, carbs, and fats. And so I understand that some people may know this tool and have it hands down. Some people may have never done it before in their lives. Some people are willing, some people are not. But going back to kind of what you said, Krystal, the great thing about tracking is it does educate you on nutrition, and it is a great way for you to understand nutrition better, because when you're in the doing of it and you're like learning what is a calorie, what is a protein, a carb, and a fat, what foods have those macros in it, what's low calorie, what's high calorie, what's high protein, what's not, it allows you to start to notice and understand nutrition, and like not only what works for you and how different foods make you feel, but also like what the quantities are, because otherwise it's like going in blind. And so something that I want to mention to you all is I've had like, and I'm pretty open about this, like I've had a really poor relationship with food in my younger years. So I've been through some interesting, I'm just like, just say it, Steph. It's okay. I've been through binging before. So why am I getting emotional? Sorry, I don't know.
Don't apologize.
Yeah, I've been through binging before, like binge eating. So for those who don't know, when I was doing my bodybuilding shows or preparation for them, this is where like the poor relationship with food uncovered itself. And I ended up actually like a really heavy binge eater. And that took me a really long time to get out of. And at the time, I blamed tracking, I blamed nutrition, I blamed like my body because obviously like I couldn't follow through with the competition. COVID happened anyway, so I got out of that. But it for a little while I was actually blaming it on tracking, and then I realized that tracking was actually the thing that got me out of it. So I understand people who don't want to track because they're worried about their relationship with food, but it's really interesting when you have perspective. Like perspective is everything, and if you think it's going to be good for you, it will be. If you think it's going to be bad for you, it also will be. At the end of the day, it's a tool, but it's also so important to learn because if you don't know it, you're never going to know it. And it's the number one tool that helps you understand nutrition. Like I don't know anything that's better.
Yep, I would have to agree, and thank you for sharing, Steph. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just wanted to give that kind of like contrast because I don't want people to think that like we've never been through anything like that and we're just like pushing tracking. Because I get that some people are nervous about that, but at the end of the day, the tracking isn't the problem and it's not you either. It's your belief systems or your perspective on it.
Yeah. And I can, like, sitting here, we can all confidently say that we've done tracking, we've experienced it for ourselves. And I feel like, as any coach should, is actually go through the protocols that they're then offering to other people. So I would say, like, what is the biggest thing that you've gained from tracking?
For me, yeah, my relationship with food and tracking had been a bit of a roller coaster as well. I think when I started, I didn't have the education and I was just trying to eat as minimal as possible and then Googling everything before I ate it. And then that just caused me to constantly be thinking about food all the time, every single day. And then also constantly feeling tired too because I wasn't fueling myself. And it was from tracking and working with a coach where I realized I was under eating. I had lost my cycle when I was training for the marathon of the first half of last year. And that's what made me realize that tracking helped me get out of that. It made me realize I can eat more. And that actually, I ended up losing weight even though I was eating more and I still kept my cycle, which is a big factor. So for me personally, tracking has really helped my relationship with food. After the marathon, look, I'm not tracking at the moment and I'm actually in a really good place because of the amount of time that I have tracked. I've got a really good understanding of what's in my food and how to plan out my meals. And now I'm in a really good place.
Definitely. And the way that I best describe like tracking is almost like putting petrol in your car, but not having like a gauge in your car to tell you how much you're putting in.
Yeah, that's actually a really good perspective. I can visually see that.
Yeah.
And you're so right.
Yeah. So like for the listener, if you were to imagine like going to a gas station, putting petrol in your car and it's not telling you when it's full or if it's close to empty, you're just like guessing.
Yeah. Oh, I am really impressed with that because I'm going to use that. That's so
Yeah,
true.
definitely.
Yeah. And I think for me, or not even I think, I know for me, the most that I've got out of tracking is definitely the education. And so I kind of bouncing off what you've said there and even what you've said, Krystal, if I hadn't learnt tracking, I wouldn't understand calories as a whole. I wouldn't understand, as I said, like what foods carry what macros. I wouldn't understand any of how to fuel my body. And that's really allowed me to take back control of my nutrition. So, you know, what I was talking about before with like my eating disorder, and to be honest with you guys, like going back, I showed signs of eating disorders for many years before, but obviously I was a bit young and didn't recognize that until now, later down the track. But what I can say is that when it comes to my nutrition around tracking, that actually pulled me out of it, because if I didn't have the knowledge that I had when I was tracking and then ended up in that kind of place, I wouldn't have been able to understand how to get myself out. And so it would have been like going in blind. And then the reason that the relationship with food took a turn is because when my body started like needing more food, because I was heavily dieting, and you can understand like that your instincts kick in and your body's trying to keep you safe. And then my relationship with food was actually not a relationship with food. It was a relationship with myself. So I want everyone to remember that as well, is like your relationship with food, the food isn't the relationship issue. It's the relationship with yourself. That's actually where the key is for that. So when I noticed that, I went, okay, what's the reason here that that I'm kind of taking it out on food? And I realized it's because I was so lean and I was so scared of putting body fat on that I was self-sabotaging. So where I'm going with this is like, because I had a good relationship with tracking, and I understood it all, and I understood calories and macros, when I got myself out of that headspace slowly, it was because I was able to focus on tracking and use the numbers as data to help me get back to maintenance, which then in turn helped my body settle down, and like those cues kind of stopped that were trying to save me. It was like the excess hunger cues and the hormonal changes, because I was eating enough food and I was going back to maintenance. Whereas if I was like going in blind, I still wouldn't have known it. Was I eating too much? Was I not eating enough? So not only did it help me get out of a dark time, but even to this day, 100% agree with you, Krystal. Like, you can now pull away from tracking from time to time because you have the education on how to eat without relying on that tool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense? I feel like I rambled.
No, it
No, that
completely
makes
does.
sense.
And you're so right, where I guess our relationship with tracking and food, it's most likely a reflection of what else is going on in our life. So if it's a control thing, like you have to be counting everything, like where else are you very controlling in your life? Or if you're feeling very stressed about food, where else are you stressed in your life that could be causing that reflection? Like, I know for me, when I do get very stressed and overwhelmed with work and life, then I start, those little habits are almost coming back, and I have to now stop myself from falling back into my old habits. And I guess from tracking and educating and working with coaches, I'm at a point where I can recognize that now. But I guess for people, when they're in that state, they may not be aware that's what's happening.
Yeah, well, you're right. Like, not aware because you're not educated. So how can you be aware?
Yeah. So on that note, actually, I'll touch on what I got from it. So tracking has definitely given me the confidence to know that when I'm exercising, whether that be running or in the gym and training to the intensity, that I'm fueling my body really well so that I can perform that exercise and still be able to get what I want out of it, whether that be the endurance aspect from running or the actual performance and growth I want from the gym. So the education that it's brought me, definitely, but the confidence to be like, I know that what I'm putting in my body is one fueling me and getting me towards my goal is what I would say.
I love that you said getting me towards my goal, because that's it at the end of the day. I am always looking for the most optimal way to do things. If it's not optimal, then it's not. If it's not optimal, what's the point? That's not the right word, Steph. No. Let's rephrase. It's the most optimal is going to be the best way, because if you're going to do something, you want to do it right. That's kind of where my head is. I'm not going to half-ass something. I'm not going to go in and just like kind of dip a toe in and dip it out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? So if you know the most optimal way to get to a goal is by being able to track and measure the data and knowing that you're 100% that you're eating for the goal as well as training for the goal, it helps you get to the goal and get to the goal more optimally, better and quicker. So yeah, doing it the right way the first time, but then also with that, the other things that I want to kind of touch on here, and I hope this makes sense as well. When we're looking at tracking or just being able to get data that you know is helping you get towards a goal, if you know because you have the data there, you're going to be way more confident. You're going to be less stressed about if it will or won't work. You're going to be less worried about if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And so you're going to enjoy the process more because you're in the process, doing it optimally, doing it the best way that you can, and also knowing without second guessing yourself that everything you're doing is going to work. It's proven to work. It's backed by science. It's, it makes sense. Whereas if you don't have that element, then the risk of self-sabotage or the risk of being stressed or not confident is higher, and then you actually might enjoy the process less. That's my take based on my own experience. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, because I think it also takes the fear away from it too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like coming, as we kind of touched on before with the eating disorders and past behaviors, I was very fearful of carbs. I was very fearful of certain foods. I was like, no, I can't eat that because it's going to make me fat. And after tracking and getting education, I've now, I'm not scared of food. I can eat takeaway when I want to and know that that is not going to make me put on 2 kilos of body fat or anything like that. So yeah, for me, tracking has definitely helped gain knowledge and understanding of what's in food and take the fear out of it and enjoy the process, as you said. And also going back to like performance training as well. So last year tracking for the marathon, and I love looking at the data for, especially when it comes to endurance training. I'm very passionate about performance training, and when it comes to endurance, like nutrition plays a massive part in that, and especially like during the runs as well. And so that's something that I work with my clients a lot about, because it's something that not many people are aware of. A lot of them come in not really eating many carbs and wondering why they're feeling a bit low. So this is when I love like providing this sort of education. So yeah, if you have a particular goal, performance or body, tracking is going to help.
Yeah. And how could someone start their tracking, or how could someone begin to learn more about tracking?
Yeah, I love this question because there are so many people who don't know where to start. So the easiest way and the best way to start is download an app called MyFitnessPal. And all you need to do is literally start by just not changing anything in your diet. When people try and download MyFitnessPal and start tracking and find out about their macros and find out about what foods to eat, and they try and change everything at once, it can feel very overwhelming because you're doing too many things at once. So simply starting by just downloading MyFitnessPal, don't change anything in your diet, and just scan the barcodes or search the things and track everything you're currently eating, and start there. Just learn that, because that way you're learning the tracking without changing your actual diet first. And the other good thing about that is it's going to build the understanding on like, what are you currently eating? How much are you currently eating? What are the macros of it that you're currently eating? And then after a little while, once you're confident with that, which is the first step, then at Within Reach, we implement a stage of tracking. So it's level 1, 2, and 3. So level 1 tracking is tracking calories only. So then if you've tracked, you've understood the app and you're feeling confident with that, you can then go, right, what is my goal? Is it maintenance, building, dieting, etc.? And you can then start tracking the calories. So ignore the macros for a little bit. Just ignore the proteins, carbs, and fats. Start tracking calories and learn how to meet the calorie requirement of your goal. So let's say you want to build, and it says to build, you need to be at 2,300 calories. That might be just above your maintenance. Start tracking those calories and just get familiar and comfortable with that. Then when you're confident with that, you can move yourself to level 2 tracking, which is tracking calories and protein. So protein is the most important macronutrient. So if you're confident with tracking calories, you're going to then feel a lot less overwhelmed by starting to track protein and hit your protein. Then once you're confident with that, level 3 tracking is tracking your calories and all of your macros. Now, the great thing about doing it that way and slowly building up your skills with that process is that you're not doing everything at once, but you're also going to pick up skills and education along the way just by doing it yourself. You're going to look back at it and go, oh, wow, I didn't know that I was eating that many carbohydrates. Oh, wow, I didn't know that that food has that much fats in it. And like, you will start to actually gain the education on your own about it, so that by the time you get to level 2 tracking and then level 3 tracking, you've already got a really good understanding of what those foods have, like what are the breakdown of those foods. And then you'll know within yourself, okay, well, if I change this, I'll have less carbs. And if I increase that, I'll have more fats. And then the puzzle pieces get put together. It's literally like putting the puzzle pieces together, and then by the time you get to level 3 tracking, you've finished the puzzle.
And you put that so like simply, and it's something that we do so well as well. Because if, for example, if we would start someone on level 3, they don't have the knowledge there, then how's that going to work?
How do they start level 3 if they don't even know how to use the app? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah,
That's another thing, like getting to know the app. Like at first it might seem really tedious, it might seem like a chore, but once you get familiar with it, you can create recipes on there and you can copy and paste to the next day. So if you are meal prepping and having the same breakfast, lunch and snacks in a week, you can just copy and paste and then make adjustments as you need, or having different dinners or things like that. So
it's like a 2-second job.
yeah, it's like you don't, I think a lot of people when they start out, they're going on it 5 times a day, and that's why they feel like it's a chore and it's annoying. But realistically, you could just do it of a night time for the next day or of that day that just had, and 2 seconds and it's done.
Yeah. And then the other good thing as well is like people go, oh, tracking seems really hard, or tracking takes too long, or whatever. And I go, okay, so do you have a job? They go, yeah. Okay. Do you have to pack your lunch for work? Yeah. So you have a lunch break, you have to eat. Yeah. Okay. So if you have to eat, then are you in a position where you're able to kind of like prepare that meal? Oh, yeah, like I have to prepare the meal because I need to take it to work. Interesting. Okay. So if you have to prepare the meal, you have to eat, and you have a lunch break, chances are you know what you're going to eat. So would it not make sense to plan your meal in the app rather than like rushing around at 5:30 in the morning trying to figure out what to take for lunch? It's just interesting because it's like people will have the come up with the I don't have time, it's too hard, I don't know how. And whilst they're very valid reasons, there's always a way. And if you already have to take food to work or you already have to eat, it's like one extra step.
Yeah, so if you could clarify it, if you do have a particular goal, then definitely tracking is going to be a very useful tool. Although, should we touch on why reasons you should not track?
Yeah, let's go into reasons that you may not track, and then we'll go into some other stuff. I've got a few things up my sleeve. Yeah, so I guess reasons for not tracking. Look, again, we're not forcing tracking in anyone's lives, but we know from our own experience and our work with clients and our work in the industry that it is the most optimal way to get to a goal because, again, it's data. Data doesn't lie. But there are times when maybe someone shouldn't track. You know, again, going back into my experience, if I have a pre-existing eating disorder or disordered eating patterns and I particularly am someone who's focused around control, it's probably not the best thing at the time and it may not aid recovery. And in that case, we recommend don't even listen to, like I'm just going to say it, don't even listen to us. If you have a disordered eating pattern, go seek some actual professional help because we are not qualified in that area to give advice or opinions on disordered eating patterns.
Correct.
That's not up our alley. We're talking about general population of people. But that is one big reason that maybe tracking is not helpful for you. And in that case, you know, there are other options. There's meal plans, there's food journals. We touched on in the last podcast about how you can visually learn about nutrition.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, one thing that I want you guys to remember is that if you do have some sort of interesting relationship with food, it's not a relationship with food, it's a relationship with yourself. So we have to remember that a relationship with food is putting it onto food as food is the problem. Whereas a relationship with self allows you to bring it back into your control and know that actually it's something that's within me that I get to work on and that I get to change. And that will help you remove, I guess, the trigger from food because food is actually not the issue here. And so sometimes it might not be a disordered eating pattern, but it could just be like poor relationship with food or low self-esteem or worries about like gaining weight or losing weight or anything like that. And people do find that like tracking may not be helpful for them because it may make them not feel great about themselves. But it's like anything, we have to go within and we have to understand that the external world are not the things that we need to work on. Because I guess what I'm trying to say here is like, if you put the blame onto food and you don't do the internal work, then that relationship is not going to get better. But then at the same time as well, something that I think is really important to note is that if you don't ever track because you're worried about the relationship with self, and you continue to avoid learning how to track and have a good relationship with self, it's always going to be something you avoid because you're never learning how to work with it. So I think that's really important, is to note that if you're avoiding it, it could actually stop you from learning how to have a good relationship with it. I hope I'm articulating myself okay.
You've put it perfectly, and I think that's a really beautiful message. And I feel if anyone's listening and is feeling a little bit like triggered or kind of relates to this, then definitely seeking support, because you don't have to do it alone. So I wanted to put that in there.
Yeah.
Definitely. And maybe some other reasons why like tracking isn't not the best, but why people may not use it to get to their goal. Krystal, do you have anything?
I guess depends how much they want their goal, how much they want it, if they're going to stick to tracking or not, or if they can just to feel like numbers is too much. So with a client of mine, it was feeling overwhelming with tracking. So we have now transitioned to meal plans. So I've done it for her. She doesn't have to think about it. So that can, if the actual tracking part is just feeling overwhelming, then there's other options like working with a coach, getting a meal plan, and then we have our food journals and things like that we use as well.
Yeah. And again, we want to really enforce like a good relationship with food, because that means you'll have a good relationship with self.
Well, it's the other way around, actually. It's a good relationship with self, which will allow you to have a good relationship with food.
Yes, thank you for that, Krystal. And like in turn, when we have that relationship, it's like we look at it differently. So in the way of reaching our goal, we know that it's actually going to help us in that. So let's bring it back to an experience I've had, is when prior to me learning about tracking, I was just educated around like, I guess, whole foods or foods that were good in a sense of like from a specific person that I was following. So I started eating like that person because I thought that was good. So therefore, again, restricting myself to a point and eating, and yes, I was working towards my goal in, I guess, a sense, but not having the full education on why it's good or why I'm following that.
Yeah,
is
do you know
interesting.
something else, actually, when you brought that up, that I was just thinking about as well, is like people, if they have a specific goal, this is more so around fat loss, but they go, they might come to us and say, oh, I've been eating really well, but I'm not losing weight. And we go, oh, what have you been eating? And they're like, I have lots of fruit, lots of veg. I have like acai bowls. I have granola. I have this, I have that, I have this, I have that. And it's like, yeah, you're eating really healthily, but how much are you eating? And so tracking allows you to understand the difference between eating healthy and eating calories, because just because something's healthy doesn't mean that it's going to help you get to your goal. We always want you to prioritize health, yes. But a lot of people think, oh, if I just eat all the healthy foods, that's enough for me to get to a goal. But you'd be surprised how many extra calories are in some of those like healthy foods. And yes, don't get me wrong, they're made with lots of vitamin, minerals, nutrients, and they are really good for quality of health and quality of nutrition. But calories are completely different. And so something I just want to segue into quickly as well is like the marketing behind healthy foods. So what learning about nutrition and learning about calories helps you do is identify the bullshit in marketing. Because at the end of the day, like, you've got to think, like, if you're going to go to Kellogg's and get cereal, or if you're going to go to Helga's and get bread, or if you're going to go to, Farmers Union and get milk or yogurt, they're companies. They're still people who are profiting off of you and making money off of you. So of course they're going to have good marketing tactics. So that's why when you see things, it's like low fat, light, or you have things that it says healthy or high protein or low carb, and you go, oh, this must be healthy. And then you eat that thing and then you go, why am I not getting to my goal? I'm eating healthy. Well, you've just been, you've got a marketing scheme that you've just bought into, because that's the other thing is so often we see, particularly when it comes to high protein, because all of a sudden all of these like high protein items just came onto the shelf. And I'm like, oh, cool. Everybody's like going on the protein wagon. That's awesome. And then when you look at it, like I, don't quote me on it because I could be wrong with what I'm thinking about. It was either Milo cereal or it was Milo. I think it might have been Milo, like the actual like
tin of Milo.
the tin of Milo. And it was like protein Milo and then Milo next to it. I swear it wasn't the cereal. I think it was the powder.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like they got a Milo protein, like, you know, powder now. And I looked at it and the normal Milo was like, I don't know, might have been like 11 grams. And the protein Milo was, I don't think it was like 12.2. So it was like an extra gram per 100 grams or whatever.
Yeah.
But also the high protein also was like, it was higher in either carbs or fat. So the calories were actually higher too.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting when you're like well, you haven't learned about nutrition, you haven't learned about calories or tracking, and you just get like completely, like you buy into these healthy, high protein, low carb, low fat, light foods that are actually worse than the ones that you could just get that are like your normal ones.
Yeah, yeah. And I see this commonly, most commonly with like the ice cream, the new protein ice creams. It's like it has 10 grams of 10 grams of protein per serve, but the fats and the carbs and the sugar in it is like through the roof.
Yeah, ice
But
cream.
if you get a normal ice cream, it's like 10 and everything else is lower.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that when I go to the ice cream section because there's also a lot of the like low calorie ice creams, only 150 calories. Then you get a Paddle Pop. Paddle Pop doesn't actually have the marketing on there, but they're only like 80 calories.
Yeah.
So.
Isn't it so interesting? And it's like, people can absolutely get scammed with marketing. You have to remember, guys, when you're going to the shops to buy something, that is a company that's selling to you. So of course they're going to market it well because they want you to buy it.
Yeah.
Like, of course they're going to market it to you well. They're like, if I put high protein on this, even if it's an extra gram than the normal option, guarantee without thinking you're going to go, oh, cool, high protein, and you're just going to buy that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there are some things that are really good. Like, I don't know if it's Vita or Veta, however you pronounce it, the protein pasta. That is really good stuff. Because that is like, because, you know, pasta is normally very high carb. There's like no protein in it. And the Vita, whatever.
I think it's better.
Is it better?
I think it's better.
That protein pasta,
Sounds
I
right.
put all my clients onto it because you can still eat pasta and lose weight, guys. And we love a good amount of pasta.
Bellissimo.
Bellissimo. But you get more bang for your buck out of it. So that's the other thing that tracking is really good for, is helping you understand, like, cut through the bullshit type of stuff. I don't know if you guys had anything else to add on that, but something that I would like to go into, which might be a bit controversial, is intuitive eating and people or coaches that are like, I guess like marketing their services, intuitive eating. I just want to know your opinions on it because I've got a few.
Take it away, Krystal.
I think you need to have built the knowledge and the base first before going into intuitive eating, because how can you intuitive eat if you don't understand what is in the food that you're eating?
You honestly could not have said that any better. Yeah. You could not have said that any better. And so the reason that I'm bringing this up as well is because I'm noticing that like intuitively eating and listen to your body is very in at the moment. Anthony's laughing at me.
Yes, yeah.
It's very in at the moment. It's very like the new thing. And it's okay. So here's a question for you guys. How do you listen to your body if you don't know what your body's telling you? So everything comes back to your education and understanding. And so when it comes to intuitively eating, like, yeah, it sounds good and all, but if you don't have the education on calories or nutrition to start with, how can you intuitively eat things that you don't know about? So when I see coaches promoting, learn how to listen to your body and intuitive eat, it's like, that's great, but are you teaching the client about tracking first? Are you teaching them about calories first? Are you teaching them all of that? If you are, that's fantastic. Like, if you're promoting intuitive eating and you're teaching your clients about calories and macros and you're teaching them all of that first, then there's no problems. But if you're promoting intuitive eat and you've got a new person that's never done it before come to you and paying you good money to get to a goal, and they don't know any of that, they're always going to have to rely on you to tell them what to do, which is not helpful. That's not education. And so that's a really important point. And the other thing that I wanted to quickly bring up with that as well is that if you are somebody who's, you know, a coach that maybe is promoting intuitive eating or listen to your body, you need to also be promoting how and promoting that there are different things that we need to do with you to get you to that point. Because I feel like a lot of people see that on social media and they go, oh, cool, like I'll just go to this coach because they'll tell me how to intuitively eat and not track. But then I just don't understand the concept. Like there's no education about how they're going to get a client to that point. And something that this is a really weird segue, but it just popped into my head. I was at a business event and someone was on stage and they were talking about a few different types of like creators or content creators or people in the world. And it was the entertainer, the educator, and the coach, right? So we've got the entertainer, the educator, and the coach. If you are an entertainer, people rely on you. If you are a coach, people rely on you. If you're an educator, you educate people to do things for themselves eventually. So that's the other thing is like, if you're a coach, are you a coach or are you an educator? Because if you're a coach, they're always going to have to rely on you. If you're an educator, you can teach them how to do it for themselves.
I really like that. And I have heard it before. And though I haven't heard it in that way.
I don't know why it popped into my head, but I thought, yeah, I'm going to say that because I somehow it will land.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going back to, I guess, like intuitive eating or listening to your body, it's like what I sort of envisioned while you're talking there is like, okay, yes, like listen to your body, but here's a meal plan so that we can get you started and follow that strictly, and then we'll go from there. And I'm like, because you don't have the education, again, this is just what I'm envisioning, and I guess every coach has their specific way to do things. But to start someone on intuitively eating, you have to know what they're eating first, rather than just giving them something and being like, oh, okay, follow this strictly, and then we'll teach you how to intuitively
Yeah, like
eat.
how to wean
It's
yourself
like,
off it and learn about it and all that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that popped into my head when you were just speaking then was like, if people, this is my thing. Like, as I've said many times before, and I'll continue to say, you want to get a client to a goal as quickly as possible, as healthily as possible, and the most optimal way possible. And so if you're like fiddling around with intuitive eating, that's great for relationship with self. If you're working on relationship with self and you're learning to intuitively eat, I think it's great. But if your intention is to lose weight or to gain muscle and you're intuitively eating, it's not optimal at all. So if you have a client coming to you that wants to lose weight and they're learning to intuitively eat, is it possible to lose weight? Yeah, it is. But is it optimal? No. Is it going to take longer? Most likely. So that's the other thing is time and place. And if you've got somebody who's on a weight loss journey, data is the most important and the most valuable thing. So we need to not kid ourselves and need to understand that actually like you need to be finding a way that's going to get a client to buy in. How does a client buy in? If they see progression, if they are enjoying it, and if it's allowing them to move forward in their journey. And when we're fiddling around and fluffing around with like self-love, intuitive eating, listen to your body, going off with the fairies, all of that sort of shit, time and place. Because like it's great to have those things, but it's not always optimal. And I guarantee you I wouldn't have had the amount of success I've had with my clients if I was telling them all to just not track and not give me any data. Like a coach is there to track data and support. We don't just track data, but it's a massive, massive part of it.
For sure. And what kind of popped up into my head was if someone's trying to intuitive eat without the education, especially for women on their cycle, they get a lot of cravings or want to eat chocolate at a particular time. And
I just intuitively wanted a whole block of chocolate.
Well, that's a thing, right? And like because like I've got the education, I know I'm like, well, it's probably because I also didn't eat enough protein. I haven't had enough healthy fats, and so I haven't fueled myself properly. And because you're so tired, your body is craving sugar because it's the fastest absorbing and a comfort food too.
But then you can go, okay, cool. Well, I feel like chocolate, rather than just sitting there and intuitively having a whole block, well, I might pair it up. I might have like a roll of chocolate. I might add in some like fruit, and I might also add in some protein as well. And this will become a sustainable snack for me that will actually fuel me the way I need it and support me in like actually releasing the cravings that I'm having.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, you're so right. That is such a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So intuitive has a time and place, but you need the education first.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to touch on in terms of like, I guess like nutrition is if there is somebody who has got a goal and they've gotten to their goal and they've been tracking and they do decide, because we're not anti-intuitive eat. I just want you guys to know that it's time and place. If somebody listening to this podcast right now is like, I actually would love to learn how to do that, because tracking is a tool. Should you track forever? If you want to. If you don't want to, no, you don't have to. Like you just said, Krystal, you're not tracking at the moment, but you'll go through periods of time where a goal means that the most optimal way is for you to track. So you'll do that. And I think that's great because we can wean ourselves on it and back off it. And I go through those periods as well. Right now, I've decided because I'm building right now. And so I'm also, apart from the hip issue, I'm running. So I do need that extra food because I'm burning extra energy and I need to make sure I'm recovering, I'm fueling my body properly, I'm eating enough protein, etc. But there will be a time when I will wean myself back off of tracking. So if somebody's gotten to their goal, they're like, I don't really want to track forever. And they want to slowly work their way into maybe being a little bit more intuitive, or realistically, not even putting a label on it, just weaning themselves off tracking and eating normally. Like, what are the steps or what are the things to notice or look out for when you want to do that?
If someone has been tracking for a while, I would wean them off slowly. So perhaps still tracking their breakfast and lunch, but not tracking their dinner. And then slowly wean them off one meal at a time. So it's not one big jump all at once.
Yep.
Spot on. Yeah, I would say the exact same. Even like using the reverse method of how we do our tracking is like from level 3 down to 2 down to 1.
Yeah.
And make sure that they, again, have any questions during that time are answered, everything like that.
Yeah. And so this is a really interesting point that I just want to bring up right now. I know that a lot of people don't see into the future, like they don't see those steps ahead. And so if somebody comes into coaching and they want to drop 10 kilos and then they drop 10 kilos, they go, cool, I've got to my goal. See you, coach. And they like cancel. And I always educate in the lead up to the end of a goal to kind of discuss what do they want to do next? Where do they want to go? What are they feeling confident with? What questions they have to be able to wean them off or out of their processes. But so many people get to an initial goal and then they just stop doing everything that's gotten them to the goal, including canceling their coaching. And so where I want to go with this is like, if you are somebody who's dropped 10 kilos and then you just say goodbye to your coach and you haven't learned how to sustain the fat loss, how to sustain the habits, how to do it on your own without that support and accountability. Because like if you've been with a coach for say 6 months or 12 months or whatever, even if you're not speaking to them every single day, you won't realize how reliant you actually are on them. And so once they're all of a sudden gone, there's no accountability, there's no help with questions or anything like that. So my recommendation to people is like, don't just get to a goal and then say goodbye to your coach and completely like do it on your own. Work with your coach to wean yourself into normal life again. Because if you are tracking or if you are training really hard and you want to, after a goal, reduce your training sessions slowly or increase your input or output or like wean yourself off tracking, there's a whole process. Like you can't just stop, because if you stop, all of the hard work that you've just been through and all the habits you've built are just going to disappear. And then what do? Then you kind of go back to square one. And that's where I see a lot of people go around in circles with like, they have a coach, they don't have a coach. They have a coach, they don't have a coach. If you spent that extra couple of months or even weeks, just like letting yourself like learn how to wean back into normal life, you'll find that you'll be able to sustain the habits, the results and the processes long term. And then you may not actually need a coach after that. And I notice a lot of people just rush it.
I think we've covered lots of really amazing topics today.
100%. Is there anything that either of you have questions about or would like the viewer to hear before?
I think the last point is just to remember that, you know, everybody is on their own individual journey, and like you
Mm.
do get to decide what's best for you. But education is key, and if you don't have that, then you can't decide what's best for you because you don't know any better.
Boom, mic drop again.
2 in a row.
Love finishing these episodes with a mic drop. No, perfect. Awesome. I would say that would be the end. Is there any other topic? I'm just trying to think. I feel like there's
we've
something.
covered everything.
Yeah,
that went a
perfect.
few different ways, but I enjoyed the contrast of it.
Yeah, I
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And we hope that you, the listener, have got so much value from this. And if you would like to learn more, then reach out to us. If you have any questions on anything at all, tracking, non-tracking, then let us know. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you.